Day 2, headline act at Stone Valley Midlands, and this man needed no introducing to me because I used to work for him. Mr. Jake Burns, tell him why.
Oh, yeah. Many years ago in a previous life, I had a short-lived career as a BBC Radio 1 producer. And, you were there at the same time.
Yeah, well, you produced the Bruno and Liz breakfast show for about 5 months.
No, I didn't. I did Bruno. I did Bruno when he was on in the afternoons, but we crossed paths a few times.
Because I didn't clock you at first, and then somebody goes, he used to be in Stiff Little Fingers. Were you having a rest then from the band?
I gave it a shot at trying to get a day job, and turned out I wasn't suited to it. It was one of those things, having been your own boss for that length of time and suddenly being told what to do just didn't sit terribly well. And I think actually the real sort of turning point for me was when I found myself in the pub after work one day arguing that the new Jason Donovan record was really good. And I'm like, do you know what? I think I could probably make a better record myself. What am I doing? So,
It was that period, wasn't it? It was all Stock Aitken and Waterman.
It was very Kylie and Jason, yeah.
It was the time when Bruno used to say to me, no, you're not playing REM, it's woolly jumper music, whatever that meant at the time. But could you get a more successful band than REM?
Right, and they were just on the verge of breaking out as well. I remember the phrase woolly jumper music. It was one of those bang your head against the wall. So, I get it, Bruno's it's a pop show, I know that. But, can we at least slip one or two of these in? It was kind of...
That's now 30 years ago, 92. Yeah, and so when you were working at Radio 1 and you thought your pop career and Stiff Little, your punk career was behind you, that was only 15 years since you'd started the band. Yeah. And now there's another 30 gone. So what I'm doing is the maths. 45 years this year you've been doing this.
Yeah, I know. You get less for murder, don't you? But it's incredible. I mean, for a band that have never really had any hits as such, that to still have the following that the band have, it's totally down to the audience. I mean, I've often said that our crowd is more like a football crowd than a rock band audience, in so much as like we're their band and they're just stuck with us. I mean, we just played in Belfast last week. It was like a homecoming thing that we did for the 40th anniversary. And since we were talking about the Stranglers earlier, they played with us for the first one, and we've tried to do them every year since, of course, COVID kind of got in the way. But this weekend was the fourth one of those in Custom House Square, and we had Ricky Warwick opened with the Selector on. We played with the Undertones for the first time. They played with us, which was fantastic. And there's like 4,500 people turn up, and it's to have that sort of I guess affection for the band is the thing that really amuses me. People, there's a lot of affection for it after all this time,
Well, I saw that last night with the Stranglers, who've now notched up 48 years. Well, one of them, the remaining original member.
God bless him.
Well, do you think it's all Foggy's time now, me and Jake. Do you think in 45 years' time, the kids of today are still going to be going to see Ed Sheeran?
I mean, somebody like that possibly, because...
Well, he's amazingly talented, he is, and Adele and people, but they're, generally speaking.
I mean, I honestly don't know. I mean, people said that about us when we started, that people wouldn't be coming to see us. And, I famously remember one review of one of our earlier records that said something like, in 10 years they'll all be working in a bank. I wish I wasn't qualified enough to work in a bank. But, I mean, I think it is. It's, the music of your youth. If it said something to you and it meant something to you, it'll stay with you. I mean, I don't hold out a lot of hope for people that write, sort of winsome songs, if you like. I mean, but if you're writing about things that affect people's everyday life, I think, they will stick with you,
Well, talking of which, you wrote topically at the time about the troubles in your home country, and it's raising its ugly head again now, isn't it? So, you can't, unfortunately, that is topical, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I hoped that the songs that we wrote back then would be almost like old Irish folk songs by now, sort of like, do you remember the bad old days and stuff? And, I mean, I just think that the general atmosphere around the country, not just Northern Ireland, in fact, if anything, Northern Ireland seems more stable and quiet than a lot of places. I think just at the moment there's just such an atmosphere of, I think, sort of, not so much being oppressed as people being ignored. I think that's the overriding emotion that I'm picking up on, is that nobody's listening to the vast majority of people, that, you know, they can't afford to live the way life's being, you know, so forced on them at the moment. And if nobody's going to listen to them, then obviously they're going to get upset. And yeah, a lot of those songs, I mean, we introduced a song called Silver Lining, which we wrote 41 years ago, and it was written about how the government of the day were shortchanging people on their unemployment benefit. They were shortchanging the pensions. They were underfunding the National Health Service. They're making it impossible for people to get council houses. And I'm like, I'm really glad after all this time things are so much better, you know. And it just seems like, you know, if you don't learn, I know it's an old line, but if you don't learn from history, you're doomed to repeat it, you know.
Well, you've been in the country this week. Did you see that clip of that woman entering a hospital and having a go at the health minister about the ambulance waiting? I mean, people are dying because...
I didn't see that, no, but it doesn't surprise me. I mean, yeah, I think people are down to their last nerve, and understandably so.
And you live, as you've done for a long time, in the United States. How does it compare, the atmosphere compare with there?
Well, I think it's difficult to compare because, I mean, it's so much of a bigger country. I mean, it's like comparing all of Europe. You know, you can't really say that one place is better. But I mean, there's definitely an underswell of you know, sort of disappointment, I think. It really is hard to say. I mean, people have got the same sort of gripes. You know, they complain about the price of petrol, they complain about the price of fuel. And to be fair, it is actually cheaper over there than it is here. But again, because it's such a huge country and there are so many extremes, they tend to cancel one another out, you know. So in a way, it's even harder to see any sort of progress over there at all. And of course, we have just come out of 4 years of being led by some complete wackadoodle. So, you know, that takes some putting back into, you know, putting things back in order.
No idea who you're talking about. So are you staying there now forever?
I think
you come back from forth all the time for the band, but you're never gonna come back permanently. You've got all your family, haven't you?
Well, my sister and brother-in-law still live in Northern Ireland. We just spent a few days there with them. And yeah, I mean, it's great to come back. I mean, to be honest with you, Liz, I mean, I've been back and forward so many times since I moved. I've never really had the chance to miss the place, you know. And I understand that, you know, when you talk to people who moved there for work, or moved anywhere for work, really, and, you know, after they've been away for 2 years or 3 years at a stretch, and they really miss coming back. But I come back about 4 or 5 times a year. I mean, this summer I've been back 4 times alone since June, so, you know, I haven't really had the chance to miss it.
Well, you're getting arrested. I'm going to ask you a question that I asked the Bee Gees when I was on Radio 1 with Bruno, who lived in Miami but were from Manchester, well, and also the Isle of Man in Australia, but they branded themselves as Manchester lads. So what do you miss most about living in America? And I'll tell you what they said: Holland's meat pies. Do
you know,
from the chippy.
They're not far wrong. I mean, seriously, it's like I go home and I go back to America, and my suitcase at the moment is filled with potato bread from Northern Ireland. I sent my wife home 2 days ago with her suitcase filled with potato bread.
I love potato bread.
Right, and it's just that, it's that sort of thing, you know. I mean, in fact, actually, our first drummer's younger brother actually caught me in the local playing field eating a local pasty before I got on a plane to come over here to do these shows. So it's stuff like that you miss. And so I totally understand the Bee Gees saying they miss the meat pies. That's exactly the sort of thing you miss. You know?
Glamorous life, isn't it?
Well, I mean, let's face it, that's probably the only connection I'll ever have with the Bee Gees. Well, apart from once I worked with them with Steve Wright when I worked on Radio 1, I worked with the Bee Gees. But apart from that, yeah, missing stuff from the Chippy is the only connection that Steve Littlefingers have with the Bee Gees. Sadly, you know, because I'd like to have more, you know.
Well, have a good time tonight, and then you get a bit of a rest, don't you? Like most bands I've spoken to this weekend, they seem to like have a big break in September before maybe building up to Christmas.
Yeah, we got 3 or 4 weeks off. Then we've only got 2 or 3 more shows, and then that actually is us done for the year. We're not doing anything till next year. Then we're back. We're doing the traditional March tour here. I think there's talk of us possibly going to Germany before that. But I mean, there seems to be no let up in shows. If anything, we turn more work down than we take now. Do
you still really genuinely enjoy it once you get on stage? I know there's a lot of fanning about, to use the technical term. Do you genuinely enjoy it once you're on the stage?
Yeah, seriously, I do. I mean, you know, it's one of those things. And the astonishing thing is I actually get more nervous now than I ever did before. And I think I worked out why. It's because after all this time, I now know what can go wrong. You know, when you're 19, you've got no idea. It's fearless. No idea what can go wrong. Now I know everything that can go wrong. So once you actually put your foot on the stage, and hit the guitar. Oh, good, it's all working. Then I can enjoy myself, you know.
Well, enjoy yourself tonight, and it's lovely to see you. And if the work dries up, you know, if Stiff Little Fingers fans ever get fed up with you, then me and Bruno have got a new venture. We're doing a podcast, and we might need a producer.
Oh, well, I'll leave my phone number before I go then.